Claire said, walking around all the time just cheesing for no reason. Cheesing
for no reason.
Like,
oh my God.
I mean, that's...
I could see that on a shirt. Don't be cheesing for no reason.
Or just cheesing for no reason.
Either way.
Whatever tickles your pickle there.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
how to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, come and join the conversation in our Facebook group.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
So if you are watching on the vodcast now on YouTube, which is our new home for the vodcast, yay, you might notice something's a little different. Ta-da! We have a new home.
I was going to say I got a new hairdo. I didn't. I brushed it this morning, so I'm doing good.
Well, I mean, that happens to me a lot, right? Like people are always like, "Oh my God, your hair looks great." I love your haircut, and I'm like, "It's not cut; it's just down." You're so used to seeing it up all the time. The second I wear it down, everyone's like, "Oh my God, your hair looks amazing!" Like, no, it's clean. That's what it is.
I ran a hairdryer through mine.
A hairdryer through it.
Well, because I have the brushy.
Oh,
I have
the
a
brushy
hair dryer. And
yeah.
I mean, I woke up this morning. I was like, "Oh, that's
look,
lioness."
So yeah, we have a new home. We've got a new backdrop, and because we're in a new location now, and I actually prefer this to the other one. Mm-hmm. Like I'm kind of loving it.
I don't have a swirly seat, but
which is a good thing.
Says who?
The squeaky chair and the desk that you used to hit with your foot when you swung round on it.
Fine, they can have their say.
Just saying.
But we do love our new home and our new backdrop, and we are so glad that you're here with us.
Yay! So today we are going to be discussing, actually today's episode initially came through as a request from a listener. They wanted us to cover this topic. And this is something that affects a lot of people. And it is probably one of the most frustrating things that somebody can say to you. And that is, you should smile more, or oh, why aren't you smiling? Or why? Like you look so miserable right now. There's all these kind of different things.
You would be so pretty if you would just smile.
Yes. Like, oh, you'd be more attractive if you smiled. Well, what makes you think I want to be attractive to you? Or that is my focus in any way, shape or form. I'm being authentic. I don't give a shit whether it's attractive to anyone else or not. So this is something that happens a lot. It happens a lot, especially with women. This is like a thing. There was a post that I shared last week on Facebook. I don't know whether I showed it to you or not. And it was, I think the account's it's called Man Who Has It All. And it's a guy that posts memes and images and captions and things of things that would normally be said to women, but he reverses the gender in it.
The PhD? Or the doctor?
Yeah, the doctor, I think it was. It shows how big of a thing this is, that whenever like this person, and I love their post, because when you see the gender roles reversed, and obviously there aren't just two gender roles anyway. I mean, you've got non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer. There's all kind of different. So it's not that there's only two anyway. But when you saw that like reversed, when you see the way that the people speak about women and you put men into the same context, you see how ridiculous it is. You see how ludicrous it sounds when it's that way around. But this is like this whole, oh, you should smile more thing is such a thing that in the comments underneath this post, and it was about saying that like, why are you not respecting me as a PhD? And I'm saying that this person was angry that they weren't like, I'm a PhD just the same as everybody else, was something to that effect.
It was like a male
Yes, a male
PhD.
PhD.
And he's like, it's a PhD because I earned a PhD.
Not because of my gender. Yeah. And it was so funny because so many of the comments, there's a lot of very sarcastic comments underneath who comment with the same sorts of things that get said to women in those situations. And so many of them were, oh, he should smile more. He would be so much more attractive if he smiled. He might get more ahead, like better recognized if he smiled. And it's like, oh my God, stop, because this happens so much. And we've both had situations actually quite recently where this has come up, in addition to this listener who also said that she gets told all the time, oh, you should smile more. Like, why aren't you smiling? Like, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, are you like, why are you miserable? Like, all these sorts of same sorts of things. So I think what we'll do is we'll share a little bit about our recent experience with it, and then we'll kind of dive into it from a needs perspective. So recently I was at a bar. I mean, it was probably a good couple of months ago now. And I was at a bar because I was listening to the guy that I'm seeing is in several bands in town. And I was listening to one of the bands that he's in who was performing at this bar. Now, I've spent a lot of time down there at this bar, and I've been down there in every kind of circumstance when shit's going down and I'm not in the best space. I've been down there celebrating. I've been down there when I'm just in a neutral space. Maybe I've had like a long day and I'm just going down there to listen to a bit of music before going to bed. Like that's kind of my space. It was really interesting because I won't go into all of the ins and outs of the situation as it happened. But I found out that there was somebody who I'd never met before and I hadn't interacted with much that night. In fact, the only time I did interact with her was to try to make sure that she was okay because there was a creepy guy hanging around. I wanted to make sure that she was all right.
How dare you?
I know. It's like, I mean, literally, she was offended that I would... I'm local and I had to deal with that. I'm like, oh, I'm local too, and I would really appreciate someone coming up if a creepy guy was hanging around.
Creepos or creepos, whether you're local or not.
Exactly. But all of that to one side, this person who I hadn't been speaking to, as it turned out, there was another person there who I had not met previously, but I got chatting to because she had a beautiful dress on that looked really gorgeous, and I was like, oh my God, your dress is so beautiful. I was like, oh, thank you so much. I got it from so and so, like as kind of as we do, and I had this conversation, and she came up to me a little bit later and she said to me, I just thought you should know that this other person had been basically spending the night bad mouthing me and telling this other stranger who she didn't know and who I didn't know that I was uptight because I hadn't quote unquote hadn't smiled all night. Now, well, the interesting thing about this was, firstly, she spent half the night sat behind me, and I know that, I mean, people do say I've got a pretty big smile, but I don't think it stretches right so that you can see it from the back of my head.
It's like a cartoon smile that expands past you.
Yeah, so out to the side. So it was kind of curious to me that she was like saying about the fact that I hadn't smiled all night, which you couldn't see my face for half the night. The other thing is that it was one of those nights where sometimes when he's playing, I'll maybe text him like some in jokes while he's playing. Now, obviously, he can't interact with me while he's doing it, other than like laughing and kind of smiling in my direction. But I believe this was one of those nights where I'd sort of sent a couple of text messages and we'd had like a little laugh and a smile between the two of us. Now, the interesting thing for me about this was that not having a smile on my face got equated to being uptight, which got equated to being a bad thing. Now, the interesting thing about all of this is that I don't actually remember the space. I was in quite a neutral space that night, as I recall. But what was interesting was the fact that somebody I didn't know and had never met before felt entitled to my being smiling, like my being smiley. Like, to them, if I wasn't smiling, there was something wrong. Now, I don't know about you, but if I walked around all day, every day, like this,
cheesing,
it would look kind of creepy. It would be weird because it obviously wouldn't be authentic. Now, I'm not somebody who, I mean, we're known as being pretty smiley people. And as Serena said in the past, like, oh, I'm sure you can hear it. Like, you can hear it in our voices when we're like when we're like, it's quite funny. It's ironic that we're talking about this. I can't stop smiling today just because I think the whole thing's so funny. But like, you can hear it in our voices, and we get told that we're very sort of smiley people. But the interesting thing is that somebody believes that you should be smiling all the time, or that in some way, shape or form, how they feel about how you are, what your facial expression is, has any bearing or resemblance on what your facial expression should be doing. Like, I don't care if you think I should be smiling. I'm not right now. And I'm okay with that. Like, the only thing that I'm probably going to do the only reason I'm probably going to smile in that situation is because I'm going to think it's ridiculous and I'm going to be laughing at the fact that you think it's appropriate to come over and tell a complete stranger that they should be smiling, or even someone you know. Like, this doesn't have to be a complete stranger. It does happen a lot with strangers. But anybody coming up and being like, hey, you should be smiling right now. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But you also had an experience not that long ago where this came up as well, right?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. It's kind of funny because going back in the day, people would always be like, oh, I thought you were such a bitch when I first met you. Mm-hmm. Because I guess I have a resting bitch face.
I knew you were going to say that. I've just got to jump in here right now because I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about this term the other day. Now, as I said, this affects lots of people will have had this from all different walks of life. And this is not a gender binary thing where it's like, oh, this is a man versus women thing. Like, this will affect people who are non-binary, people who are gender fluid, people who are transgender. There's all kinds of different people who will have had this experience. But one of the reasons I say that it comes up along with women is this term, resting bitch face. Now, a lot of the time that is used to describe a woman. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the time the term bitch is subtly gendered in the sense that people will use that with women. They won't necessarily use it as much with men. Now, the interesting thing is, I can't think of an equivalent for men. I can't think of an equivalent phrase that is common parlance that everybody knows. Everybody knows the term resting bitch face. Mm-hmm. Now, the interesting thing is it's so common for people to be commenting on the fact that a woman isn't smiling, that there is an entire term dedicated in our common language. But there isn't one for men who aren't smiling.
Well, shit.
Just wanted to point that out because I know it was. I didn't know that's where you. I didn't know you were going to bring up the term, but as soon as you did, I'm like, I got to say something about this because I was literally thinking about this a couple of days ago. I think I was thinking about this episode, and it was this that came up for me. So anyway, carry on with your story. I just had to jump in quickly on that.
Yeah, one. No, it's a great jump in there because I hadn't even really thought of it. Like, I knew it was kind of a gendered term. Like, I've never really heard somebody say to a man or somebody identifying as a man, like, oh, you have resting bitch face. That wasn't like
right,
kind of snarky, or you know what I mean? But like,
even so, like, I don't think that term is used generally towards men.
No.
And it's not like there's a resting asshole face like equivalent.
But
like,
there are so many that have it.
Right? And it's like, and again, there's nothing wrong with you not having a smile on your face no matter what your gender is. But it's interesting here how there is a term that has been brought up and is used in common language to point out, generally speaking, women, or definitely people who are not men, who do not have a smile on their face. Mm-hmm. And it's considered an insult. Like, that is, no one comes up to someone and goes, you've got resting bitch face, and assumes that they're paying a compliment. That is considered an insult.
Why, thank you.
Like, so kind of you to say.
I've been working on it in the mirror.
So anyway, sorry, carry on with your story. I just like a slight deviation there, but an important one.
Yes, very important. And it's ironic because, as Claire said, we're pretty smiley people.
Right.
But we're also authentic people.
Right.
And that's, and before I did the needs work, I think that I probably took it on as like, oh wow, like, I'm being perceived as a bitch. You know, it could be that something major was going on, that I didn't feel well, that I just wasn't like in a place of smiling. Like, it's
neutral is an okay place to be.
Yes. And it's a very I think neutral is more the default. Like, yeah, like Claire said, walking around all the time just cheesing for no reason. Cheesing for no reason. Like,
oh my God.
I mean, that's...
I could see that on a shirt. Don't be cheesing for no reason.
Or just cheesing for no reason. Whatever whatever tickles your pickle there. Yeah, we're gonna get all of them in. Just keep stacking them up with those little quips that belong on bumper stickers.
Well, and the interesting thing is that like the whole kind of cheesing for no reason. So how many people aren't cheesing for no reason? The reason is because they think they have to appear happy, or they think that they're going to have someone stranger come up and insult them if they don't have a smile on their face. So that whole thing of like, oh, it's for no reason, I'm calling bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very rarely, I think, because a lot of the people who I know that do cheese for no reason, like that are just like they walk around happy, they get the, oh, you're always smiling, like that can't be real, that has to be fake. It's like, well, what the fuck do you want me to do? Like I can't be neutral, I can't frown, I can't pout, I can't smile, like God forbid I laugh. Like,
well, and the interesting thing is, I mean, and we'll get into this a little bit further, the fact that you have anybody feels that they have the right to comment on how somebody else is appearing and how somebody else is quite likely to be feeling based on how they are appearing is in and of itself an issue. And we'll get into that a little bit later in terms of the needs context, but continue with your story.
So I've had a long history of the you should smile more, oh, you'd be so much prettier if you smiled, like all of the things. And I've done a lot of work, obviously the needs work, which has enlightened me on a lot of different areas of my life. Yeah. And most importantly, being in alignment with myself and being where I'm at and just embracing where I'm at.
Yes.
Yeah. Like she's doing some hands. the new setup is still like we're a little further apart from each other, so it's like she's wanting interaction. And there goes the train. Come back.
You were talking about the fact that throughout your life you've had lots of people say.
So this is something that has always kind of been a trigger back then, and now it's not as much of a trigger, but I still notice it when people say it.
Still annoying.
It really fucking is. Yeah. Like, it really fucking is annoying.
And you'll understand when we get to the needs set, it will make sense as to why it's annoying, because there is subtext, there is needs-based subtext and nuance underneath this, which is the reason it's so offensive and so annoying.
Yes. So this actually happened less than a month ago. I was at an event and I was working on the production team. So I was focused. I was running about. I was getting shit done. Now, my getting shit done face usually doesn't have a big grin. Like, when she is focused as fuck, you know, like it's like laser focused, and there's like, and you really are. You're in that kind of laser. Off you go. And there's an intensity about me, and not like a energetic necessarily. Like, oh, stay away from her. But I'm like, no, I'm.
It's more of an energetic. I'm going. Like, this is where I'm going. I'm doing my thing. And I'm not really paying any attention to the world around me because I'm doing my thing.
And that's it. Like, I don't really realize, besides the peripheral view, like, okay, there's people there. I'm
going to make sure I don't slam into somebody.
Right.
But
I'm not
paying any attention to those people.
I'm certainly not considering what my fucking face looks like at this point. Be like, do I look cute right now? I really need to get this shit done. How are my cheeks like?
No,
just come on.
No. Yeah.
So I had somebody who had just met me. They felt comfortable with me enough to say this, but it's interesting because I know they said it to me because they felt comfortable enough with me. But I've gotten it so much in my life from people who had no fucking clue who I was, just giving their 2 cents. But even the fact that
I feel comfortable with you, I would never say this to you. No, just because you feel comfortable. Again, that level of comfort, there's a needs piece to that as well. We'll go into that.
And it's actually probably more people say it when they don't know you, which is ironic in itself.
Yeah.
But with my laser focus, they're like, oh, you look miserable. Like, get a smile on your face. I mean, it was almost like a demand, like put a smile on your face, because the event was a lively, light, fun event, and it doesn't matter. Like, I'm at where I'm at, and
my eyebrow is doing a lot of work today. I'm like, this one eyebrow is like, seriously, seriously.
But to tell me I look miserable and be like, get a smile on your face, and I'm like,
how about you get out of my face?
Okay. Like, and initially I put on like a momentary, like, okay, like, I'm smiling. Does this
More of a grimace than a smile at that point.
Look better? Because I feel like
it doesn't feel better.
I look like I'm in pain now because I'm obviously not in the smiley space. And it really kind of just hit me aside. And I'm like, you fucking kidding me? Like, and you see what I'm doing. Like, you know what my mission is.
Right.
Leave me the fuck alone and just let me do.
Right.
Like, but just to have somebody come in, and then I got in my head a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I'm not smiling. Am I not having fun? Like, almost had me questioning me and what I was doing. And then I'm like, no. Like, go back. I mean,
so I say that again?
No.
No.
Old habits die hard. Our patterns come back so fucking quickly. We get blindsided by them. And that's one of those situations I was like, oh.
We get sideswiped by them.
Sideswiped, yes.
Thank
you.
We're tweaking ableist language that is, we're still unlearning those processes. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
It's in the, like, that's actually one that usually I'm pretty, like, good with. And I didn't even notice I said it. So thank you very, very much for that one. So it did. It kind of sideswiped. I was like, oh, okay. Like,
ew.
And then, what? And then I got pissed.
Right.
I'm like, what the fuck?
Justifiably so.
What the fuck? Who the fuck? A, who the fuck are you?
Right.
B, who the fuck are you to tell me that I look miserable? C, who the fuck are you to demand that I get a smile on my face? It was just a whole big what the fuck moment. Of,
just no.
No. Like,
just stop. All of this.
And it really, like, for that moment, like, luckily I was able to then check in, be like, all right, what was just compromised there? Kind of do a quick, like, readjust of my needs, meet some things really, really quickly, and then move on. But without that, I can't think of how long that effect would have lasted, you know, a couple of years ago before I was able to apply this work. And it still affected me doing what I do, living and breathing this work. I still had a solid pause of, like, oh wait, am I affecting this person's event because I'm not smiling? Yes, and if that's the case,
if so, that's a you problem, as in the other person. It's nothing to do with you. And the other thing is that you were trying to get something done. You were focused on something that was really important, and what it did was it drew your focus from the thing that you were doing that was important onto this bullshit thing that had nothing to do with anything and was irrelevant other than this person feeling entitled to say that. And so what it does is that it actually, it's a waste of our time and energy because it puts a whole bunch of other stuff in the space that's got no place being there. Just no. Shoo. So let's put
you and your smiles.
Yeah. You want to smile? Fine. That's okay. But here's the thing, is that sometimes when people are in this situation, they will smile at somebody, and if the person doesn't smile back, they'll have something to say about it. It's like, you do you. You do you. Do not do something with the express intention of trying to change what somebody else is doing because you don't like it.
And you have no idea where that person is at. And they could be nowhere. Right. They could just be 100% neutral.
Chilling in their place.
Yeah. Zero fucks given. Good for you. Give zero fucks. Like,
certainly would have zero fucks to give to that person.
Right?
Oh, no, sorry, must be in my other pants. Actually, you owe me a fuck now. That's how bad it is. Yeah.
Give me your fuck.
Yeah.
And that's like, there have been so many times I've had people say that, and it's like, you have no idea what I'm going through right now. You have no idea what just happened, or like, because I haven't always been open about my life or what's going on in it. I keep a lot of things in, and it's like, you know, you really don't know.
And still,
it doesn't matter.
Even if that person doesn't have anything going, we shouldn't be changing this behavior just because someone might be going through some shit. We should be changing this behavior because we have no right. We have absolutely no right. And there's a few things. Let's put a needs lens on this for a second. And let's look at what's going on here. Basically what is happening in this situation is the person who is saying something to the other person, saying you should put a smile on your face, you should smile more, blah, 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 you look so miserable. Basically what they're doing is saying that there is something about what this other person is doing that is making them feel uncomfortable. in someone. Now, you feeling uncomfortable, that's your stuff. Like, it has nothing to do with the other person. You wanting somebody, so there's a couple of things. Either it's that they're feeling uncomfortable. So it's like, I'm uncomfortable with the fact that you don't look happy right now. A lot of the time, that's like, we talked about this in the, I think in the episode where we talked about quote unquote negative emotions, and we don't mean negative emotions. I'm using big air quotes if you're on the podcast. My thought train went out the window. I don't know where it went. I was like, I was mid-flow then. Come back. Is that it's a little bit like, God, I really don't know where that went. I don't know what I was saying then. I know I was talking about quote unquote negative emotions.
I'm thinking about train stations. So we're a great pair.
We are. We're doing well right now.
But smiling through it because we want
because it's funny. Because we find this funny right now. But it basically. So the first thing is that they're uncomfortable. If they are uncomfortable, normally the reason that they are uncomfortable is because. That's where it links to the quote unquote negative emotions. A lot of the time people are uncomfortable with other people being in a negative emotion space. And the reason for that is because they haven't processed their own negative emotions. They're uncomfortable with their own negative emotions and they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know a lot of the time they're like, oh God, I feel like I have to fix this. Mm-hmm. Or that's also can sometimes come up. It's the people pleasing thing of like, oh, it's my job to make you feel happy because you're not happy. Not your job at all, not your responsibility.
I think it also holds a mirror to a lot of people where they're like, oh, that person's getting to be wherever they're at, but I feel I need to be happy at all times.
Absolutely. That can be part of it as well. Another example is it might be that I want the space around me to be pretty or beautiful. And so happy. I want all of the people around me, or happy. And sometimes happy that's what that looks like. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I want everyone around me to be happy in order for me to be happy. So if somebody isn't happy, they're affecting my happiness. Bullshit. Nothing to do with that. Likewise with the whole, I want the world around me to look pretty, and I think people look pretty when they've got smiles on their faces. When I put it in those terms, how fucking ridiculous does this sound? I want my world around me to be pretty, so I'm going to tell the people who aren't looking as pretty as I want them to look to do the thing that is going to make them look pretty to me. How absurd does that sound?
Sounds like a big old fuck off.
Yes.
Like,
big old bag of fuck off happening right there. But basically what you're doing...
really?
Yes.
Come on now.
Right? But this is a lot of the time what happens. Again, like a lot of the time because this happens with women because a societal value as women is in our attractiveness. And so people think, well, they must want to be attractive to all men at all times. Believe you me, I do not want to be attractive to all men at any time. And most men any of the time. No, I don't care about any of that. I'm too busy doing me. I've got more important things to be doing with my life and getting on with than worrying about whether somebody else thinks I'm attractive. But that bucks the social trend. The social trend is, women's inherent value is in their attractiveness, and therefore if they're not looking attractive, they're not as valuable as they should be, and therefore I need to tell them this. So I mean, it's a whole mess of shit. It really is. But basically, from a needs perspective, what is happening in this situation is that somebody is saying that what is important to me is more important than how you are feeling. What is what is important to me is my comfort, which normally sits in emotional experience and expression need. Like, I'm not comfortable with you not smiling, so my need for my emotional experience expression need to be quote unquote met, and it's not met through doing this. This is a really shitty strategy. You're trying to use people around you to get your needs met because you don't know how to meet them for yourself. But if you're getting into that emotional experience expression, I'm not my emotional experience expression right now is like discomfort because of how you are behaving. That's a you problem, not a them problem. Like, this is about your stuff and how your emotional experience expression needs aren't met. If you're so it's the discomfort thing. If you're wanting other people to be happy so that you can be happy, that just means you don't know how to meet your emotional experience and expression need to create and cultivate happiness for yourself. That has nothing to do with this other person. In terms of your value need, what happens in this situation, and this is the reason that we get pissed off about this, and this is the reason it is so offensive, is from a value need standpoint, what is happening in that situation is like the person saying you should smile more is saying, my needs are more important than your needs, because you're obviously meeting your needs by being wherever you're at right now. But I don't want you to be wherever you're at right now. And it's more important that you meet my need which means that inherently they're positioning themselves as more valuable than you because their needs are being positioned as more valuable than your needs. Big bag of fuck off. Same thing with the personal power. Like the fact that people, a lot of the time, people are using this situation to feel powerful over other people. It's a way of like, oh, look, I'm better than you because I'm smiling and you're not. Or I believe I have the right to tell you what to do and that you're going to change what you're doing because of what I've said. That is also a power dynamic. It's a really shitty strategy for trying to get your personal power need met.
And usually that one works because, I mean, it's one that I'm guilty of too. Somebody says smile more. And even with like the layer of sarcasm that I have, oftentimes in the past, I don't feel like I do this as much now. Yeah. And I feel like there are still
because your other needs aren't going to be compromised if you don't do it now because you have other ways of meeting them.
That.
There you go.
There. But think of how many times somebody says, oh, you should smile more. And the first fucking thing we do is we smile. We're like, even if it's a like grimace smile or an obvious fuck off smile, like we still give, and there's a little bit of satisfaction in there, a little bit of that personal power that's meant for that person. Right. So they're like, got you to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Got you to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I have to say these days, my response more than often is like, why? Explain to me. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, I mean, no is often another one. I'm like, no. But why is a really interesting one. Because they then have to explain why you should do it.
That's always entertaining. Grab some popcorn.
Absolutely. Okay, tell me why. Oh, because you'd be more attractive if you smiled. What makes you think I want to be attractive to you? Answer that question. And then they go, oh yeah, the backpedaling starts at this point. Why? Because you look miserable. Don't look happy. There's a difference between not looking happy and looking miserable. Why is it that you need somebody to be happy in order for them to not be miserable? Like, you start asking questions. So this is the thing. So there's two sides to this. It says, what do you do if you are the person asking somebody to smile more or saying to smile more? First thing, don't. Stop. Mm-hmm. Second thing is, if you feel like you want to ask somebody to smile more, or tell someone to smile more, or comment on their lack of smiling, that is your indicator that one or more of your needs is not being met, and you are trying to use this poor other person as a vehicle for you getting your needs met. Not a first way of meeting your needs to start with, but it's actually a good indicator. Like, hold on a second. This is a hello, little wave coming on from your needs going, hi, something you might want to pay attention to down here. It's a good nudge. If you learn how to take it as a nudge and go, hold on a second, I want to tell this person to smile more. What's going on in me that is meaning that I want to tell this complete stranger to smile more, or even someone I know to smile more? Now, the interesting thing is that getting like a little mini tangent for a second, is that in that moment, we talked earlier about the comfort thing, the level of comfort that you have with somebody. Now, the interesting thing is that the more comfortable you feel, the more you may feel like you're able to say this. But what it means is that you feel more entitled to this person meeting your needs because you are closer. This is part of this dismantling that we need to do, that the people in our lives are there to meet our needs for us. We're there to meet our needs for us. Now, if they choose to, if they happen to, by accident, just give us a little something because that's where they're at right now. Like if Serena's flinging glitter around and some happens to land on me and I like wearing glitter, that's a bonus. I'm not going, oh God, I've got no glitter. I need Serena to throw some glitter on me, because if Serena, how else am I going to get glitter? I go to Dollar Tree and buy my own. That's how. So and when you put it in those contexts, it sounds ridiculous. But that's often what we're trying, that's what we're doing. That's what we're saying in these situations. So the comfort level is interesting because the comfort level can go two ways. Either the comfort level is like, oh, I feel close enough to this person that I feel able to say this. Or because I don't know this person, I don't care what they think of me, so I can say this to them and it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And if that is how they are approaching you, that is exactly how you can approach them back in return, which is like, if they don't care enough about what you think about them to be able to say this to you, then that is sure as shit your basis for the level of fucks you should give about how they feel and what they want. Just saying, as a little aside here. So the final thing is that the one thing I will say is if you're in this place of, I want to ask this person to smile. Now, there could be a genuine human concern in this, because it may be that actually you're seeing their lack of smile and you're going, I wonder if there's something up with them. I wonder if they've got something going on at the moment. Now, there's a difference between telling somebody to smile to make you comfortable and basically saying, I want you to meet my needs by doing the thing that's going to make me feel comfortable or make me feel happy or make me not have to worry about whether you've got some stuff going on, and actually dropping into genuine compassion. And this is the fork in the road with this. If you're the person who sees someone not smiling and that cultural conditioning comes up, it's like bing bing bing, tell them to smile, bing bing bing, tell them they look miserable. If that comes up, there's a fork in the road, and this fork in the road is determined by the level of care and compassion we have for the individual that we're noticing in this situation. If we don't really have any care or compassion for them, or we don't have the capacity to engage with them, we don't have the time or what have you, and we're doing this, that this is about us and how we feel in that moment, that fork in the road is all about self-inquiry. It's all about looking at yourself and going, what is going on within me that is causing me to want to say to a complete stranger that you should change how you look to meet my needs. That basically, if you can drill that down and get to, okay, here are the needs I want to get met. How do I meet those needs for myself? That gives you an entirely different path, which is a self-first way of meeting needs, because you are not going to be compromising somebody else by positioning your needs as more valuable than theirs, or saying something that may be considered offensive to them. So that takes you out of that, oh God, I was about to put my foot in my mouth. And we've all learned these patterns of conditioning throughout our lives. Now, I'm not somebody who would go up to someone and say, oh, you should smile more. But we've all learned different patterns of conditioning.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know, maybe I have done it.
I've done it before I knew better, because it was instead of the question, are you okay?
We'll get into that.
Yeah, I haven't got that fork in the road
yet.
But like, I can't think of a specific instance. I can almost guarantee I've done it numerous times.
I possibly have as well. But there are other patterns and conditioning which I know I'm definitely more my thing. Mm-hmm. Like, we're all unlearning these patterns of conditioning that we've been conditioned into our society from just seeing other people do them. So like, it's okay to be in the process of unlearning. And one of the ways that we do that is we catch ourselves before we do that pattern, and we use it as a self-reflection to go, okay, what is going on with me right now? What is making me want to say this to another person? What needs are not being met? How do I go about meeting those needs for myself?
Something I want to jump in with.
Sure.
If you're watching this and you're like, oh, I do that, or I know that I have done that, and you're like, I want to be mindful about this, and I'm going to, try to take this in, and then you're in a conversation and you're like, oh, you should smile more. And you catch yourself after you've said it. We've mentioned this before. That's okay. The fact that you've caught it at all. And then
it's not okay, but it's not the end of the world. It's what you do. Mm-hmm. Like, it's still not okay to say that to somebody because of the impact it could have to them. And it's not the end of the world. It's what you do next that determines your level of what your character is. How do you navigate the fact that you've said this thing that you know now you really shouldn't be saying? That's what makes a difference. So in that situation, what would you do?
I am so sorry. I didn't mean to, I don't even just saying to them, being like,
apology blueprint steps. Firstly, act to avert further harm. If you stop speaking, then what you do is you acknowledge, I'm so sorry. That was completely I didn't have any right to say that to you. That is my stuff, not your stuff. Address the situation. Actually, you can go through the steps and be like, actually, you just look neutral. It's all about me. Like, that was nothing to do with you. It's just make amends. Is there anything I can do? Like, can I buy you a drink or something? I'm so sorry. Like that. There are and this is on a small scale, but you can still go through those steps in that situation. Be like, that's a pattern that I have been used to using in the past. I'm trying to unlearn it. A little bit like we do, like when we catch ourselves with ableist language. Oh, hold on. No, we want to switch this language to this because we're learning to do better. Own that you're learning to do better. Apologize and say, I'm so sorry. Did that, if I'm so sorry that what I said was out of line, and I can imagine that could have potentially impacted you in this way, or this way. And here's what I actually meant to say in this situation. And this is where you get onto fork number 2 in the road.
By the way, I've never had anybody, unfortunately, there are not many people who will say, like, I'm trying to unlearn this or change my habits. Like, not very many people, I feel, are very forthcoming with that.
Or even trying to do that at all.
Yes. I have had quite a few instances recently, especially with people we work with and just kind of people within our lives, where they have actually named the fact, I'm working on this, like, you know, this was on me. And I'm like, yes.
It feels so good when someone does that.
Thank you for letting me know that, because right there, like, it impacts me. And now there's something so...
Well, you can have compassion for them because you know what it feels like to be in that space. You're like, oh God, yeah, I'm doing that with this and this as well. I know how difficult it is. I really appreciate the fact that you're trying to do, like, it creates a connection in that moment.
Yeah. And it doesn't mitigate the impact, but it definitely, it changes it. And it's like, okay, like,
yeah.
You know, I want to help you in your process.
Right.
Like,
Absolutely.
this is how this made me feel. You know, whatever it is, depending on the circumstances.
Right.
I'm not going to get into this is how it made me feel with a total rando at a bar. But, like, my friend,
maybe you will.
Yeah, you never know.
I mean, I've seen you get into it with a complete rando at a bar. I mean, and
happened.
Whatever, and like whatever feels right for you in that moment, like either to or not. So the first like fork on the road is this, okay, how do I make this about me? How do I make this about, as in, like, unlearning the thing that I'm unlearning? How do I make it about understanding what needs are up in me that is causing me to want to say this? Am I just uncomfortable with other people not being happy? That's because I feel maybe a responsibility to make the people around me happy. Maybe it's like I don't feel like I can be happy unless everyone around me. So there's all kinds of things in terms of that self-inquiry that if you go in underneath it, you go, oh, this is what's going on. The second fork in the road, if you do have genuine care and compassion for somebody in that situation, is you can come with curiosity. Like, as in, rather than going, oh my God, you look miserable right now, just saying, just checking, is everything okay? Like, and from that curious, genuinely curious place, and somebody could respond with like, yeah, everything's fine. Like, as in, like, there's nothing wrong right now. Or it might be, actually, I've got some stuff going on right now. Okay. And there's this, you can come with compassion. And that compassion is this, okay, I'm a human, you're a human. I'm concerned that maybe there may be something that's affecting you at the moment. I want to be curious about that. Now, just because you've been curious about that, you could just be simply like, oh God, I'm so sorry to hear that. That could be the end of the conversation. Or you might offer support. You might say, is there anything you want to talk about? Would you like a hug? Like, there are things that you can potentially do in that situation. But it's that dropping out of that space of, like, realizing that I'm trying to get someone else to change where they're at, versus having compassion and seeing if I could support somebody else if that's what they're needing in that moment in time. And recognizing it's okay if they don't. It's okay if they're like, oh, cool. Like, if it's like, no, I'm fine. Oh, cool, great. Carry on. Like, that's the end of the conversation. There's nothing more that needs to be said in that situation. But at that point, you've shown genuine care and concern and compassion rather than judgment and superiority in the sense of, I want you to do this thing that works for me, even though it's obviously not what works for you because that's not what you're doing right now.
I have a random side step, which I will remember.
I could feel there was something going on right now. Go like side step away. Like we'll do it like together. We'll slide to the right. Slide. We're gonna do. I'll come with you. Okay,
like, so we're gonna slide this way for
slide
a minute.
This way.
As you were just talking about that, all I can think of is when people, you know, fucking adulting. It takes a lot out of you.
It ain't easy, that's for sure.
Don't comment on anybody's appearance in any way whatsoever. Like, what was coming to me is oh, you look so tired. Oh, you look exhausted. Like, anything like that, coming to it from that fork in the road of concern, like, oh, wow, they look like, because basically you're saying you look like shit. Like, we all know that's what you look tired means.
Yes.
Like, there's different levels of it, and it means you don't look great.
Right.
Like, are you okay? Like, is everything going okay? Like,
right.
Don't pry. Give it a general, like, if you're concerned, like, doing okay?
Yeah.
Because that gives the opportunity
okay?
somebody to be like, yeah, I just haven't been sleeping, or yes, I'm fine, or no, I'm not. Hard stop. Okay, I just wanted to check in, make sure everything was all right.
Make sure you were okay.
It's like...
So, we did a slide to this way, and I'm now sliding this way because
down.
I'm going somewhere with this as well. Because so often it's interesting because the examples that Serena gave were negatives or perceived negatives. Oh, you're so tired, you look so exhausted. You also don't do it in the positive.
I have some examples for that too.
Because
when we slide back.
it's that whole thing of like, oh God, you look so skinny right now.
Sorry for the
right.
the
but it's like because
there.
because in our society, quote on skinny is perceived as being more valuable. And therefore you're going, oh, look, you've increased in value because you no longer have the same amount of weight. Oh, thank you. I've got a horrible condition right now that's meant that I've lost a ton of weight. Now, that could be what. Now, it may not be anything to do with that. It may change their eating habits. But the thing is, what we do is we reinforce these cultural beliefs that to look good by certain Eurocentric beauty standards, i.e. we need to look skinny, we need to look pale, we need to look toned, we need to like it's we're feeding that monster, because what ends up happening then is even if the person goes, oh great, thanks, yeah, I've been trying to lose weight recently, what means is if that person then gains that weight, then their internal perception of themselves goes down, and how they believe they're perceived by everybody else also goes down as well.
You're so skinny fed my eating disorder for many years,
right?
Like, yeah. I mean, that's the fact of it. Like,
absolutely.
That phrase right there, and exactly what Claire said. Like, it's,
right.
Obviously in that, well, not obviously, but in that bubble of eating disorder, like, you're trying to be skinnier than you are.
Right.
And that's part of the disorder.
Right.
So getting the little bits of like, oh, I look good now.
Right.
A half a pound.
Right.
Gutted me.
Absolutely.
Gutted me. And just be like,
yeah,
like it's bringing up all sorts of like no feelings.
Yeah,
right
absolutely.
Like, no.
Well, and the thing about it is it's not to say that you can't acknowledge somebody. Acknowledgement is one of our 12 universal needs. Acknowledgement is a thing, but that acknowledgement doesn't have to be for something that is like superficial or aesthetic. Like you were like, oh my goodness, you've got such a kind heart. Or like, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you. That's an acknowledgement of somebody. You don't have to go into what they look like. Now, some people get their needs met through those comments, but it can actually also feed a very unhealthy dynamic in terms of our relationship with our bodies, with our size, with our appearance. Like I posted, I recently I explored the world of TikTok a little bit, and I saw all these people commenting on this filter that was being used, and I put it on, and I didn't look like me. Like, I didn't recognize my own face.
I didn't even look the same, like, ethnicity. Like,
right. It's scary.
Yeah.
Because this belief is that we have to look this certain way in order to be perceived as valuable. So this is tying directly into our needs. So yes, please do not comment on how somebody looks. What you can do is you can ask how they are. And that is a very different question. One is like, because someone might be having a great day and feeling great about themselves. You go, oh God, you look so tired. Like demolishes how they were feeling. Like, are you okay? Oh, actually, you know what? I was out like last night. I had so much fun. You know what I mean? Like it completely affect how somebody is seeing themselves. And so we really want to make sure that we are recognizing, are we showing concern for them as a human being? Is it something to do with us? If it's our stuff, if you want to comment on how somebody else looks in terms of their weight or in terms of whatever they look like, chances are that's because that's what you believe is valuable in you as well, and you're feeding that for yourself as much as you are for anybody else. It's not about that. Let's look at other ways of meeting our needs other than meeting out to these cultural standards, which actually cause so much harm, both to people who are from different diverse backgrounds, people who don't have the I remember listening to a podcast once in which a voluptuous black woman said that she'd spent her entire life trying to be a skinny white woman, something that she would literally never be able to be because of the cultural conditioning. So let's look at how we can dismantle that and break that down. And what we can do is we can, in those moments, say like, oh God, you look so happy right now. Like that's that's a very different comment to you look so skinny right now. Very different comment. Like, are you okay right now? versus oh my god, you look exhausted. Like and one comes from, I'm connecting to my humanity, I'm seeing you as a human being, and I want to either acknowledge you human to human, or I want to check in on you human to human, and it makes a complete difference to what we're doing.
You ready to do one to the right?
Oh yeah.
To the right. We're doing a little slide again. This topic is so, it can be actually a robust topic, and it's bringing up all sorts of
real
things.
What?
Robust, like
Oh, robust.
robust.
I thought you said a real bus topic. I was like, we're getting on a bus. Where are we going? Take me somewhere new on the bus.
Going on an adventure.
Yay.
I have an interesting, like, what Claire said, asking like a genuine concern, like, how are you doing, is a very nice kind of blanket. It fits with most situations. As we've talked about on many a podcast episode, I deal with grief a lot differently than most people. How many times I have heard, luckily none of it was to my face, because at those points in my life I probably...
There would have been a clap back or two.
Or two.
Yeah.
With specifically my mother's funeral and my yaya's funeral, I embraced a different part. I embraced what was present for me. And in both situations, there was a lot of joy. There was a lot of celebration. There was a lot of happiness for me. Not because they were gone, obviously, but I was able to bring that part in, and that was what was present. I was able to be happy at the wake, at the funeral. And there were moments of tears and other feelings as well, but I was smiling. And people commented on the fact I was laughing and smiling and enjoying myself and engaging. Oh, is this a party to her? Well, kinda. Like, it's a celebration of their life, and I am choosing to celebrate in this manner. So it's kind of interesting. Like, I've also had it on the other side, where it's like I'm embracing and I am being authentic, and I'm trying to honor where I'm at, and somebody wants to criticize that too, with how could she be laughing right now? If somebody came up to me and was like, are you doing okay? Like, I'd probably know it's like, oh, they probably see the laughing and stuff as like a masking technique, and be like, yeah, actually I'm remembering this, and I might get to talk about it more. Or I could be like, actually no, I'm not doing okay. And for me, it's a little different, because being unauthentic in those situations isn't really part of me anymore. But for so many people, we use masking. We all use masking at certain points. And it's like, oh, thank you for noticing that something seemed kind of off, because I'm trying to get through and I can't. Or... And
I think inherently what we're talking about in all of these things is recognizing that there is a judgment that is going on that is laced in superiority. There's a difference between judging, oh, is this a way of I would like to do things or not? Is it like judging this option or that option being better for me in this space? That's a different kind of judgment. But the kind of judgment is like, there's a better way and a worse way you should be doing this. Like, there's a way you should grieve and a way you shouldn't grieve, and I know my way of doing it, my way of grieving is the right way of doing it, and your way of grieving is the wrong way of doing it. Like, oh, there's a way you should look and a way you shouldn't look, and if you look this way, you're less valuable than this way, because my way of doing things is better, or the way I believe that we all should be doing things is better. Like, my way of like doing life and like smiling all the time is the right way of doing it. There's a better way of doing it, and you're doing it a less good way. All of that is all personal power and all value need stuff.
And societal conditioning too. I think we're conditioned to,
but I think it's societal conditioning to meet those needs.
Yes,
it's not they're not an either or thing. I think that, and you're absolutely right, there's a lot of societal conditioning around these things, and it's because these are the ways that previous generations have got those needs met, and all that's happened is we're learning from watching what other people have done and do, and we go, oh, that's how you do it. No, that's not how you do it. This is our opportunity to break those patterns and to create a different way of doing things. And so this kind of leads me on to the kind of real, like, the last point of this, which is that we've talked about, if you are the person who is asking the question, what if you are the person on the receiving end of it? What if you are the person who someone is coming up to and saying this? the first thing is you don't owe anyone anything. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't owe anyone politeness. You don't owe anyone a smile. You don't owe anyone anything. Now, the one caveat I will put on this is that as a woman who has been in situations where I've received this kind of feedback from a man in which it may not have felt safe for me to speak my truth, I may have prioritized my security need. I'm gone and smiled and laughed it off. And went, off I go. Bye. Well, I'm out. Like, I find a way out of the situation. So it's screwed up that sometimes we have to do this. Sometimes we have to prioritize our safety and security need over our authenticity in that moment in time. And it's okay that we feel how we feel about that. We have to process that. That's part of our emotional experience expression need. It's going to come up. It's like, I am pissed that I just had to do that shit. And still, that's what we do. So I want to kind of caveat it by saying that. There are really two main approaches that I would, well, three main approaches. The third approach sometimes doesn't work so well. In fact, we'll do that one first. The first is, so the third one doesn't always work so well, is now the first one. I'm confusing everybody, including myself, is ignore it. Now, some people who are incredibly entitled will not take being ignored. So sometimes you can ignore it and you can just carry on about your day. If someone comments about as you're walking down the street, you can just ignore it and keep on going. In some circumstances, it's not going to work to do that because they're going to cause more trouble for you when you ignore them than if you actually addressed it. As I said, the other option is you can just choose to smile, because even if it's not a safety thing, it may just be, you know what, I don't have the capacity to deal with this bullshit right now. I'm going to smile momentarily so that this can be done, because the amount of energy it's going to take me to expend to address this situation is more than it's going to take me to just smile and move the hell on. So that's a valid option as well. Like, you can always use that, be like, whatever. Recognizing all the time. And here's the thing. If you do this, feel how you feel about it. Allow yourself to acknowledge how you feel about it. Acknowledge what's happened to your value need and take that moment to go, actually, I have every right to feel however I feel, to look however I look, and to smile or not if I so choose. That is about you. So it's important when these things happen, even if you do that kind of coping thing of going, like with an eye roll swiftly following normally, that to make sure that you are actually taking care of those needs that get impacted in that moment. The other thing you can do is you can just say no. No. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but the one thing that I find works really, really well in these situations and is quite disarming in these situations is I say no, thank you. Now, you can just say no. No is a complete sentence. Every right to say that. When you say no, thank you, it throws people off.
Like, what
do you mean, no, thank you? Like, because you're being polite, for a start. Not something you owe them. Important to notice. And I'm not doing that because I owe them anything. I'm doing that because it's probably going to throw them off. It's like when I think I've shared this on a previous podcast episode about when I went to a salsa club and a guy thought he was entitled to dance with me because I existed in the room. And I smiled and said, no, thank you. And he said, why? And I said, because I don't want to, with a smile. Again, shouldn't have to smile in that situation, and honestly didn't really want to. But I also knew that was what was going to short circuit his thinking and have him go, because he felt entitled to. And in these situations, people feel entitled to have these conversations with you. So when you say no, thank you, it can disarm. If you really want to have the conversation, that's when you start asking questions. What is it in you that needs me to be smiling right now? What would my smiling change for you? Ask some questions about them and make it about them, because it is about them, and help them to realize it is about them. And if they say, oh, well, I'm worried about you. Oh, you could have asked me if I was okay, but you didn't. You told me to smile.
I can smile and still not be okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, the interesting thing is that, oh, if you like, oh, I was concerned about you. Really? How did I know that? Now, depending on the circumstances, and again, depending on your safety, we want to make sure that you stay secure and safe, physically and emotionally. You may choose to take or not take these different options. And I said, sometimes it's just that I can't be bothered to deal with this. Bye. And off I go outside of my screen. One of the things I'm loving on TikTok recently is like the screen side exits from some of the content creators I follow. Beautiful, like chef's kiss, beautiful, like bye.
I feel like I would just tip over and like
the whole setup would go with me. But anyway, but that sometimes you can just do that just for ease. But in some situations, the thing about it is the second that you get into, and the reason I suggest asking questions in this circumstance is that as soon as you challenge what they have done, and you say, basically the inference is, or the explicit word you say is, you have done something wrong, you are likely to get a defensive reaction. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you then got to deal with this. And that's not any fun to deal with. And it's not going to get anywhere, because normally what happens is when someone else gets defensive, they stop listening. Their only focus is on trying to convince you that they are right. If you ask questions, you can lead them to the conclusion that actually it was never about you in the first place. So it's a little bit like, this is a great strategy if because we've been talking about misogyny and sexism in the context of this. If somebody tells a sexist quote unquote joke around you and then you don't laugh, and then, oh, come on, you should laugh. Oh, sorry, I didn't understand. Why was that funny? Get them to explain it. And watch them try and justify something that is not funny. And explain why it is. Because they unravel pretty quickly. If you say, well, that's not funny, the defenses come up and you end up and they're not going to hear anything. But by asking questions, if you want to engage with this, as I said, you don't have to. You can just smile and nod. You can just say no, thank you. You can just say no. You can ignore it. There's a whole bunch of different ways of dealing with this. But if you want to engage, because there are some instances where I've had this conversation with people who are closer to me, because I care about those people and I care about what they're doing, and they're likely to impact me more frequently. So I'm going to have that conversation more with those people than I am with others. And it's like, okay, explain to me why that's funny. Help me understand. Explain to me why I need to smile because you want me to. Help me understand. The eyebrows up again. The eyebrow approves. And that by asking the questions, you help them get to now the interesting thing is that most people don't know this. The brain will automatically answer a question it sees or hears. So it's the reason a lot of advertising and marketing questions are used, because the brain automatically answers it. So I was a grocery store in the UK. They used to have these trucks, and on the back it said, "Do you shop online?" ? Your brain has already answered that the second you read it. So by asking the questions, even if they don't answer, they've answered themselves. And that's the place where we want to get to. We want to get to the point where we start to dismantle this thinking and say, okay, rather than just going, stop telling people to, because I mean, that would be justified. You would be very justified in going, and sometimes there's feelings to be had around, seriously, I got to ask all these questions rather than just telling this asshole to stop telling other people to smile. Like that, valid feelings to be emotionally felt and expressed, not necessarily to them. I mean, you may express them to them, but you may want to process them in a way that you don't have to deal with their reaction to you processing them. But by doing that, what we do is we start to ask these questions, and by starting to ask the questions, it may not even be the person you're speaking to. Somebody might be around and just listening to the conversation and them going, oh shit, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good question.
I've been in that situation many times on the receiving and the delivering end, where I've either witnessed somebody who's adjacent to my conversation all of a sudden kind of lean in and they're like, huh.
Well, that's it. Well, isn't that interesting?
Right.
You see then the neighbor's eyebrow go up. Okay.
And there are times, I mean, and especially with my discussions with Claire, because one of the things we do, it's about asking questions.
Right.
She'll ask a question and I'm like, I mean, oftentimes I'm like, well,
Oh,
shit. And that's how we learn. Like,
Yeah. And it's so much more powerful for somebody. It's the reason that coaches and mentors, people who do what I do, it's the reason we ask questions, because it is so much more powerful when people come to these conclusions themselves through, like, you can guide them to that conclusion by asking the right questions versus being told. People don't like to be told. They like to think that they've got the answers. So what you got to do is help them realize they've already got the answers. They just hadn't figured it out yet. So by asking the questions, so like Serena, like very, very rarely when Serena will come to me for some kind of help or guidance with something, will I tell her what to do or tell her, or I'll say it's this or it's that. I'll ask, like, she knows the first thing out of my mouth is chances are it's going to be a question.
And I'd say a good portion of the time I answer my own question because of her asking it. Like, she doesn't even have to say anything. I'm like, oh, da 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 da. Okay. I hear myself. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think this is a big part, as you've been able to tell from the slides to the right and the left that we've done as we've gone through, that this is part of a bigger topic. It's part of the value need piece. It's part of the personal power need piece. It's part of the, there's so many needs that relate to this. And this pattern of behavior is more than just asking people to smile. It's bigger than that. So I'm sure that we will come back and revisit this in a different guise on another podcast episode. But before we finish up, is there anything else you want to add for today?
I mean, I was kind of having fun with the slides, but we'll slide into the next episode.
I was waiting for the no.
I'll slide into my notes.
And obviously, if this is something we've triggered, like, oh, hold on a second, a thought process of a question, like, oh, well, what would I do in this situation? Do feel free to reach out, and we'll be happy to answer that in another podcast episode. But that. From tongue-tied Claire, you can tell it is the end of the episode. So I'm going to call it quits for right now and say thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Remember to stay safe. We're sending you lots of love. And between now and next time, to continue to meet your own needs. Bye-bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and give us a written review,
as it will help more people find us. And remember, if you find yourself wanting to tell somebody else to smile, either it's because you're uncomfortable with where they're at, or it's an opportunity to extend genuine compassion.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.